So it's been about 6 or 7 months since I made that Gulf's Overlook video about the orchestral riff that I ended up hearing pretty much everywhere back in the late 90s and early 2000s. If you haven't seen that video before, go ahead and watch it. You can watch probably the first 3 minutes and kind of get the general idea. In that video I mentioned that I reached out to the composer of Police Strike 4, J. Peter Robinson, to see if he was the one who first composed that piece, since that's the earliest that I could find it, and unfortunately I never heard back. As I said, it's been about 6 or 7 months, so I highly doubt that I ever will hear back. I'm pretty sure he just straight up doesn't give a shit. In that time, I really didn't think about it, but recently I rewatched the video and kind of thought more about it and realized just kind of how unrealistic the conclusion that I came to was. I mean, to be honest, I can't really blame myself. I never really heard back from the guy that I was asking, and at least he could have pointed me in the right direction, but he didn't. Police Strike 4 was made in 1996, so it's safe to assume that it was also composed in 1996. The movie really didn't do that well over here financially, so I couldn't think of a lot of composers who probably would have seen the movie and wanted to use that riff that he had composed. On top of that, I don't think a movie composer would be willing to sell off something that they had made and just recently put into a movie to so many people. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and claim to be a movie buff. I've probably seen less movies than I have fingers, but I would assume that that's how it would be. So by now you're probably asking, where exactly am I going with this? Well, I kind of got a lead as to where this possibly could come from. Now, this isn't a concrete lead. I don't know this for absolute sure, but after doing a little bit more research over the past few days, I found something pretty interesting. You see, there's a company called Spectrasonics, and what Spectrasonics used to do and still do to this day is sell CD-ROMs that were full of samples. After sitting down and listening to what little that I could on the internet, I found 2 videos about Distorted Reality 1 and 2, and if you sit down and listen to them, you can hear a lot of Spyro's soundtrack in both of them. Just take a listen. Now those are just some of the samples that I could find. There's probably a lot more in those 2 videos alone than I'm giving it credit for, but I kind of wanted to just keep it short because I don't know how the copyright thing works with that. So with this knowledge, knowing that the first time this riff kind of ever really appeared in mainstream media was 1996, and knowing the release date of Spyro's Ripto's Rage, the only thing that I can possibly assume is that this riff comes from one of the CD-ROMs that Spectrasonics sells. I don't know which one that it comes from, but I would imagine it's probably one of the orchestral ones. Another reason I say this is it's not just the Spyro tracks that use a lot of these samples. You can probably recognize a lot of them from different pieces of media from all over. I'm pretty sure a lot of them still get used to this very day. That's pretty amazing. As much as I would love to sit here and confirm it, unfortunately the orchestral CDs and pretty much any CD on Spectrasonics' site costs a fuck ton, and I am not laying out that much money for a mite. The world may never actually know where that riff comes from, but as far as we know, that's pretty much our best guess. Of course, if you know better than I do, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below, and I will definitely read over it, but so far I've had no luck with pretty much any other comment from anyone trying to figure this out. It's no offense to anybody, it's just like I'm pretty much the only one in the world who cares about this because I'm a fucking loser. But anyway, another thing that I found out while doing a lot of this research was something specifically about Spyro 3. Now, I'm pretty sure it's no secret to anybody watching this video that out of the first 3 Spyro games, the third one was definitely the most rushed. I mean, just looking at the release dates between Spyro 2 and Spyro 3, there's significantly less time between the games than Spyro 1 and Spyro 2. And that's really not even the only place that you have to look. You can also look at the game itself and see that there are actually some pretty game-breaking things going on in it. In fact, one of the most infamous glitches comes from the game being rushed in its automatic difficulty tuning. You may see 2 gems atop a tower which are unreachable by normal means in Fireworks Factory, and this always happens whenever the game sets itself to easy. There's a code to undo it, but it's still pretty game-breaking if you don't know the cheat code. So if that's no secret, then what exactly am I sitting here trying to tell you? Well, I'm getting to that right now. When it comes to soundtracks, Spyro 3 is probably the most unique, and it's not simply because of the way that it sounds. The reason Spyro 3's soundtrack is so strange is because it differs not only by region, but also by version. When I was a kid, I finally got the game in 2001, and by that time the 1.1 version had actually come out, but I didn't even know there was a 1.0 version until pretty recently. Other than a couple of bug fixes, the games are pretty much exactly the same, but the soundtrack is where it's very, very different. In the first version of Spyro 3, there are 8 tracks missing entirely from the game. In version 1.0, the following levels are missing their music: Mushroom Speedway, Country Speedway, Honey Speedway, Lost Fleet, the Enchanted Tower skateboarding minigame, Haunted Tomb, Crystal Islands, and Dino Mines. From that list you can gather that Midnight Mountain is probably the most rushed part of the game, considering 3 of its levels tracks were missing entirely. And that's not even covering all of the missing music. On the disc are 2 tracks that go completely unused, the Evening Lake theme and the final boss theme. It's largely believed that this was because of a glitch, but I have no idea. There's no concrete evidence that I've seen so far. Now version 1.0 is also known as the Greatest Hits version, which was not only released over here, but also released in Europe as the PAL Platinum Hits edition. And what's strange about that is pretty much all of the tracks are fixed in the US version. However, in the PAL version, the final boss theme and the Evening Lake theme are still missing. Even stranger then, the PSN releases of the game still have the same issues as the 1.0 version. I don't know if that's exactly the case now still. I don't know if they fixed it or not, but a lot of places reported that. From everywhere that I can gather, Spyro 3 was so rushed that Stuart Copeland couldn't even finish the soundtrack before they had to ship out the game. I assume it was probably to meet a holiday deadline. It's pretty safe to assume this. I haven't seen any reliable source say exactly this, but considering everything, I wouldn't be surprised if this were actually the case. That said, it's probably the safest assumption anybody could come to, so without further ado, I want to show you what exactly I found. I ended up obtaining Spyro 3 1.0 completely legally. I completed the game, and as it turns out, a lot of the tracks were actually missing from 1.0. The rest of this video is not going to have any more commentary, it's just going to be me showing off the levels side by side that use the same tracks in the 1.0 version. With that said, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'll try to make more in the future. Just tell me down in the comments section that you like it. And without further ado, here are my findings. So thank you guys again. I said I was done with my commentary, but there were a few things that I forgot to mention in the production of this video, and I'm just going to kind of tack them on at the end here, and hopefully somebody out there is listening. I think the strangest thing about the tracks being missing from this game is the Enchanted Towers minigame track being missing, and the reason why is because I'm in possession of a Spyro 3 demo disc. On this demo disc are only really 3 things that you can do on it. It's Seashell Shore, Sunny Villa, skateboarding, and I don't remember the third one off the top of my head. The reason this confuses me so much is because every single song on that demo CD is replaced with that song, the Enchanted Towers minigame. At some point I might make a video about that demo disc specifically, just kind of showing off the differences between that and the actual version of the game, but the only thing that I can gather as far as that goes is that that track was already finished and Stuart Copeland could not finish yet another track, so they just kind of put that there as a placeholder. So in reality, we may not even actually have the track for Enchanted Towers skateboarding. That could have just been put there because it was lying around and they needed it. Before I left, I wanted to mention a little bit more about Stuart Copeland's use of distorted reality. Some of the songs that I didn't mention and a little bit of a taste that I gave you were the Stone Hill song from Spyro 1, Toasty as well. I believe Metalhead and Hercoast and Dreamweavers all use things from distorted reality. Where they all are, I'm not entirely sure. You're going to have to scour the internet yourself to find them. Distorted reality is all uploaded to YouTube, at least most of it I believe, but everything else is really hard to find. With that out of the way, thank you guys for watching again. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.